This is Cult Film Face Off.
Hello and welcome to Cult Film Face Off. With me, as always, is Chet Roivas.
Hello.
And I am Nick Leonard. So, top boy on the wing this week is Matt Green, who is responsible for this week's pairing and is definitely not on gardening house duty. We are looking at two films that depict juvenile offender institutions. We are, of course, talking Scum versus Bad Boys. So, first up, swaggering out on A wing, is Alan Clarke's 1979 offering. Three new inmates arrive at a British borstal. They face an uncompromising regime made up of inmates and brutal screws. Scum.
Scum was a television play about being inside, but you weren't allowed to see it. Now Scum has been made into a major motion picture, but you're not allowed to see certain scenes in this trailer. Scum is a film that will stun you. It has already stunned the critics.
It is a scorchingly fine film. I cannot remember the last time I saw a British film so confident in the courage of its convictions.
The Sunday Telegraph.
Brilliantly made. A remarkably courageous film with outstanding performances.
Now Magazine.
A hard-hitting, well-made film.
The Sunday Mirror.
A lot of rough male humor around, some of it very funny indeed.
The Daily Mail.
An important film, one which should be seen.
The Sun. The critics have already decided. Now you can decide. Scum. It's a story of survival.
Right. So, Scum.
Yes.
I mean, you've seen it, right?
I think every male our age that grew up in this country has seen Scum.
Yeah,
it's one of those films.
Yeah, you're not a man. You're not a man unless you've seen Scum. When did you first see it?
I mean, I think we all saw it about sort of 10, between the ages of 10 and 15. It's one of those. Rite of passage is the wrong thing to say, but it's one of those films that it's sort of standard practice, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's one of those films that is so quotable and so, it inspired like phrases down the line of like, oh, I had a slip. I mean, I had a fall. And that's like a standard practice of anyone getting assaulted by anybody in nightclub by police officers.
Yeah, right.
Oh, just had a fall, didn't I?
Yeah.
Scum was one of those VHSs that was passed around with like high monetary value. It's like I remember that getting passed around. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Reservoir Dogs.
When you say high monetary value, what do you mean? It was quite rare.
It was just like gold. It's one of those. You got hold of the VHS of Reservoir Dogs. It was just hallowed material or something like that. I suppose. I actually owned the VHS of Scum came from me, and it got passed around my school. I remember being gutted when I lost it. I never got it back.
Yeah.
And it dawned on me, like one lunchtime, like basically who had it. There's like the naughtiest kid in our school, there was a guy called Toby Springett. And he was a complete delinquent, really. Looking back on it, he actually was. I've forgotten about this whole thing about Scum. I hadn't even thought about it for over 20 years. But he was a really naughty kid. He did stuff like, he didn't have to go and swim. Go swimming in the girls' convent. He basically, curled out poo in the swimming pool. He threw up in a guy's pair of football boots before PE. I mean, he was a proper cunt, to be honest. And we're just finishing lunch. We walk out into the playground, and basically I hear this voice go, "Where's your fucking tool?" And he got this banana out and just slammed it over a first year's head, and it perfectly. The banana cut, so it just it fell off onto the ground like it.
Oh, it cut it in half.
Yeah.
I thought you thought it cut the guy that hit with it.
No, that got more of a fucking laugh than anything else.
Split the banana.
It just split the banana. The banana just fell down, perfectly serrated.
And that was all the evidence you needed to know that he was.
That was the last stop of my VHS copy of Scum. Was Toby Springer.
Did you get it back with him?
No. So yeah, I mean, I watched it a lot back then when I was at school. Mm-hmm. And I'm very pleased to say that Scum has lost none of its impact whatsoever, and it still packs a fucking wallop of a punch.
I think it's better now, to be honest. I think it's aged really brilliantly. There's things about the film that I never truly appreciated, especially how it builds to the conclusion, because I always felt the ending came so suddenly.
I completely agree.
And I was just like, I didn't really warrant that. And as you watch the story build, and now as I did, I was like, it's so brilliant the way they get to that point.
It's the perfect ending, and I was exactly the same as a kid. I felt the ending came out of nowhere.
Nowhere. Yeah,
it was so harsh, the ending, and it just so abrupt. There was so much more to be said. There was nothing more to be said.
No.
It was the perfect ending. The rest, I watched the restoration. I got hold of the restoration Blu-ray by Pinewood Studios.
Yeah.
That they did from the 35mm negative, and it looked tremendous.
It does look stunning. I don't know whether it was this year or last year. They did a sort of very small scale cinema release in the States. And it got reappraised and it went down really well. But yeah, apparently it looks great. I would like to see this film on the big screen. Despite how many times I saw it as a kid, there's still like I could watch it again probably now, and I only saw it a few days ago. I actually saw this film twice because I have the Alan Clarke box set, which I didn't realise it at the time. I thought it had the cinematic version of Scum, but it has the original TV original. Which, if people don't know, basically the BBC funded Scum in its original form, which was going to be a 90-minute teleplay, and then the BBC banned it.
But you can see why they banned it. The BBC being an organisation which is very closely aligned with the government. And
That's
the government running ball stalls.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I mean, there's on the DVD of this box set, there's a great interview with the head of the BBC where he's arguing with a critic on a panel show, like way back in the 70s, about why he thinks it should be banned. And it doesn't. I mean, he says on the one hand that it rings kind of false, at the same time as saying that it's too convincing because it's a documentary. And then there's another documentary that follows that sort of looks at the differences between documentaries and fiction, and when audiences are probably going to be confused. So yeah, the original TV version is slightly different. People, including Raymond, think that it's better. But
how does the cast differ in the TV movie to the actual film?
There's changes. I don't think any of them are better or worse. I mean, the guy who plays Archer in the TV version is David Threlfall, the guy who's the main character in the original version of Shameless.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
And he's really good. Yeah, Frank. What's his name? Frank.
We're having a party.
Yeah, that's it.
To throw a party.
That's right. Yeah. It's played by him, and
He's a good actor.
He's really good. And when it starts, I thought, oh, he's not as good as the other guy. And by the end of the film, I thought, wow, he's actually better. And then when I watched the cinematic version, I was like, oh, they're both brilliant, and it's slightly different. But the differences in the film were quite surprising.
Is the running time different?
It's slightly shorter, I think, because they took out the first suicide when the guy finds out that his wife's died.
The black guy who slits his, that's not in there.
He's told that his wife's died, and you see a shot of him sort of staring into space, but they cut that suicide out. There's no shot. It's slightly less sort of button pushy, I suppose, might not be the right word, but when Davis rings the bell for the second time after he's cut his wrist, and you see the screw look up from his newspaper and then look away, like ignoring him, the shot's not in it. They're not dragged off bloodied at the end, they're just kind of dragged out without having been beaten, and there's no silent credits. A pop song plays on the end credits.
What, the TV bit?
On the TV, yeah, there's like a pop song thing. I was like, wow, that doesn't work at all.
It's basically just softening it.
But they had to, because they already knew that the BBC were going to try and intervene. The most surprising thing that's in the TV version that's not in the cinematic version is that Carlin at one point, in a weird scene, takes a wife for himself. He sits down with one of the young guys he's on the wing with and says, oh, I've never done this before, I'm really nervous, but do you want to be me missus? And he has this basically girlfriend.
That's ridiculous. I mean, the thing is, right, about these ball stalls, right, they're only in there for 2 year stretches.
Yeah, I know.
They're not lifers who need to have a partner. I mean, that just seems completely.
That's why
it seems like it's completely over-egging it.
You can't just drop something in there like that. I mean, maybe he's gay. That's fine, but you can't just drop it in there like that as if this is something that's because it doesn't affect anybody else. It's a really weird scene, and it seems to almost be played for laughs. I've read some American critics said, "Oh, it's a cop out to not have included that scene," but it just seemed out of place. You can't just drop something in the middle and not sort of elaborate on it.
I don't know. I mean, he wants to go in there, do his time, get out.
Get out.
He said that he's not. He's looking to hook up with it. He's only going to be in there for 2 years.
Yeah, I know.
Max.
It was a weird choice, and I suppose that's why they cut it. But some people think that they should have kept it in, but I don't agree with that. It is interesting, the argument that it sort of inspired about where the line is between sort of documentary and fiction, because it really is like a fake documentary.
Absolutely. I mean, if there's no music in it. Apart from the scene where one of the inmates is playing a radio which has been planted in his room, there is no music whatsoever.
It has that air. It really does. I mean, even when you're 100% aware of its fiction, just the way most of the shots are kind of peering in through bars, and it's dull, routine behaviour punctuated by violence. It really does feel like it's not fiction at all.
No, it's got very much a fly on the wall to it feel. I mean, even the tracking shot when Ray Winston is basically about to he gets a snooker balls in the sock and does that, and suddenly the camera follows him up, and then it's kinetic and bang, bang, bang. He's going through the guys to obviously to his rise to being the daddy. I mean, the violence is done so well. It's like, I mean, every single slap resonates.
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
kick to the groin resonates. Like it's uncompromising as hell.
Yeah.
You know, I found myself kind of like, you know, I'm so, you know, reiterate, it's just that it has lost none of its punch whatsoever. And some of it is really difficult to watch, and stuff that I'd forgotten about, like the greenhouse scene is obviously a hugely it's highly controversial, very memorable scene, but I do not remember the warden peeking in and basically being a voyeur.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of almost enjoying this, and then going in and quipping about Kew Gardens.
Yeah.
I mean, which makes it even more horrific.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, sadistic. Sadistic.
Yeah, I mean, how sadistic the Screws are is just. I mean, they so enjoy tormenting everybody.
And these are kids.
I know,
And this is
and-
the weird thing as well. Watching it as a kid, right? I always thought they were much older than me, and they were, because I was watching it when I was 12 or 13,
Yeah.
thinking they were in their 20s.
yeah. No,
They're
exactly.
just older
Teenagers.
teenagers.
Yeah.
And also, what surprised me as well is how minor their crimes were.
are.
You know, this is like, you know, someone dipping their hand in the till, someone stealing a car. I mean, you know, these are low category crimes, but with the most harshest of punishments.
And some of the techniques they use, like the thing that really got to me, and I think this kind of affected me as a kid, when they have to address the guy who's in charge, they've got two Screws standing in their face, and they have to talk beyond them. And I was like, I'd react to that. I don't know how I'd be stuck in that
Is it when
endless
they're going
circle.
for parole, you mean? As
Yeah.
the governor. They've got two of them stood like that.
Right in their
Yeah.
face. I mean, it's the kind of stuff that they do, the techniques you use during wartime and stuff like that. Really, just intimidation techniques.
Well, this is, you know, this is about the absolute breaking down of the criminal. You know, there's nothing. This is not rehabilitation. This is literally breaking somebody down to the lowest ebb.
Brutalise them to the
Brutalise them, exactly, until they're just literally they're ebbed away. I mean, it's uncompromising stuff.
I really like the fact that you've got Archer to kind of counteract Carlin, because, you know, Carlin is this incredibly volatile character. I mean, the only two ways of legitimately sort of reacting to that situation is Carlin, who reacts sort of viscerally, and Archer, the sort of philosopher type who just torments the Screws in any way he can.
It's a really good juxtaposition,
Yeah.
because Ray Winston is, you know, he's the guy that you think, oh, what's he going to do? He's going to keep his head down, is he? And obviously he's not. He's going to fucking buck it, and he's going to rise up that fucking ladder. And you have Archer, who's the liberal voice of reason, who intelligently goes about his disruption in a non-violent way.
Yeah.
And then they're a great, you know, they're a great kind of.
It does work very well together. Yeah.
What really sort of surprised me is how the racial abuse was so fucking disturbingly casual, like so casual. Like the racism was completely uniform across the inmates and the Screws, to a point of, I mean, really just like the racial slurs and just how they were just completely like the lowest of the low.
Yeah, it's pretty savage. There's another scene that's in the TV version where, you know, they play that kind of, I mean, is it Bulldog when they're fighting over a
It's
football?
weird. It's kind of they're playing football in a gym, but it's kind of British Bulldog
Yeah,
rules.
yeah.
They basically scrub them. It's just a fucking fight with a ball.
Yeah, exactly.
Rugby.
But in the TV version, the teams are segregated, so it is the black kids versus the white kids.
That's the same as in the.
They didn't do that, did they?
Yeah.
Oh, they didn't. I think they made it a bit more explicit in the TV version.
Oh, it was just blacks versus whites.
Oh, right, was it? I didn't realise.
I mean, Winston, it's a groundbreaking performance. I mean, foul mouth, chest beating, hard case of Carling. I mean, I was thinking about Ray Winston, and I was thinking, I've never seen him turn in a bad performance. He's been in bad films. 28-inch chest.
Oh, that's a terrible 28. Yeah,
28-inch chest.
28. Is that called? Yeah, 28 waist. 28-inch waist chest. I can't remember. Yeah,
That's a shit film.
Yeah.
But he's not shit.
He's not shit. The only performance that jumped to mind is, and I think it's because of his appalling Boston accent, is in The Departed. I just thought, oh God, every time he spoke, I was like, he's like Jack Nicholson's henchman.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think he's bad in it. It's just a terrible accent.
Bad accent.
Well, he's all right, old Winston. I think. I mean, to be honest, I think throughout the acting is terrific. Well, yeah, regardless of what version you watch, and I watched both in the last week. I was amazed at how. I think this is even more powerful than I remember it. To be honest, it's a terrific film.
Yeah, I mean, I found it, you know, compelling, absorbing, and shocking. And fuck, if you have not seen this film, I know I've said this, but really, Scum is a really important movie.
Yeah, it's terrific. I mean, Borsals didn't exist, 3 years afterwards, and I think.
And that must be testament to how.
I mean, genuinely testament, because they were completely they were completely blind to what was going on in those institutions, and they were gone 3 years later. So a fucking terrific film, really. Considering how many times I've seen it when I was a kid, it just felt as fresh, fresh and vital.
I was concerned because I thought, oh God, is Father Time not going to have been too kind to Scum?
No,
and if anything,
it's better.
It's better. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I think it's genuinely and deserves its status as a cult classic.
Yeah, really, totally.
Right. On to the next.
Yep.
So, next up is Rick Rosenthal's 1983 feature Bad Boys. Chicago crime kid Mick O'Brien is sent to reform school for accidentally killing a street rival's kid brother. Bad Boys.
Once little boys grew up to be reliable and hard-working. But now, in their world, respect has to be earned and kept by a lethal combination of money and violence. Bad Boys. Meet Michael O'Brien.
I don't want you to die.
Nothing's gonna happen to me.
He loves JC and the excitement of being somebody that matters.
We're gonna be in and out of there so fast. Like that.
Bad Boys.
This is a juvenile facility. That means you are not in charge of the zoo. We are.
Come on, let's go.
Bad Boys.
So, how do you like it so far?
Do your time clean and you walk. Any trouble? And you could grow old in here, Jack.
There's only one person left who believes Mick O'Brien can make it. Mick O'Brien. Life has pushed him into a corner. And he's coming out fighting. Bad Boys. In a detention center, time stands still. But O'Brien won't stand for the arrival of a sworn enemy.
You know, they're betting on who's gonna kill who. Moreno's the odds-on favorite. He's gonna kill you. That's what he says.
Oh, well, let me tell you something, Maricón, you're already dead.
Bad Boys. A story of the survival of the fittest. Every day is a duel of strength against weakness. Bad Boys.
Right, so Bad Boys. Have you seen it? Have you heard of it?
I had never seen it until last week. It's one of yet another one of those video covers that I've seen.
Yeah.
You know, Sean Penn straddling that guy. I think on the English video cover he's holding something like a baton, and on the international one he's not. But yeah, so I don't know. I never had any interest in it, so I'd never seen it. I was expecting the worst. Had you seen it before?
Never seen it. Never heard of it.
Had you not seen that video in the video shop?
No. Passed me by.
Yeah, I was expecting the worst, and I was pretty pleasantly surprised. I think this is a really, really good film. I think it's a bit muddled. I don't think it's a message movie in the same way that Scum is by any means. When it starts, the credits roll, and it's this unbelievably saccharine music, piano music, and photographs of very, very young children. And I thought the only way this could be more manipulative is if this was at the end. And I was like, this is bullshit. But as it started showing older photos, the music started getting really dark, sort of a bit faster and more chaotic, and I was like, this is kind of like something at the beginning of a horror film. I quite like it now. But yeah, I suppose the one thing that I thought was interesting is that Sean Penn doesn't seem to be particularly impoverished. He doesn't seem to be. A lot of the other kids that are sort of featured, they're clearly living in poverty, and crime is the only way out. But Sean Penn seems to be quite comfortable, and the fact that he's living this life of crime seems a little bit odd. I don't know.
Basically, because he looks so much more Hollywood than anybody else in the entire cast.
But he's got a house, a home, a bedroom. He's got a guitar. I mean, I just thought it seems weird that he's this.
But he's just a bit more successful in using his cash to his own means. I mean, he's a complete toe rag, but a very active toe rag. I mean, within the first half an hour, he's like, he's mugged somebody, he's doing a drug deal. Maybe he's just a lot more active than his counterparts are.
Yeah, but most people, I mean, his sort
of... And also, it seems to be a much smaller family. The Latino gang is, the Latino guy he's got a little brother. He's got, there's far more people living in that house.
Yeah, because they've got no money.
So it's just him and his mum and whoever his mum's hooking up with.
And his mum seems to be providing for them as a family, I guess. I mean, maybe they. I don't know. That struck me as weird, that somebody who doesn't need to go out committing crime.
But maybe he's just doing it better than the rest of them.
Yeah, but what, if there's no need to do it, why would he do it? Just for a fucking laugh?
No, but he's committing more felonies and therefore has got more cash.
I don't know.
He seems like a guy that just goes out pretty regularly, knocking off people and mugging them off.
But it just seemed to me that he didn't really need to, because he had a nice. They didn't live in.
His gaff was quite nice.
His house was alright, wasn't it?
It's just an apartment block. I mean, I don't remember it being particularly cosy.
I don't know. I don't know. It was when you saw, you know, the other main character of the film. You're like, fuck. He lives in abject poverty.
He's in a certainly far more modest apartment block than he is. But I wouldn't say that he's living in some like swanky apartment. From what I remember, it's just he had quite a small pokey room. He stuck his headphones on.
Maybe
his mum's hooking up with some schlub.
Maybe I'm just. Maybe I'm just.
I forget it. We're going to come to Bel Air. All I remember is that
maybe it's because his best friend is Alan Ruck. I sort of thought, oh, he's just Ferris Bueller, basically. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. That was the first thing that struck me as a bit weird. It might be complete misjudgment on my part.
Halloween 2. So we've been in this director's company before,
yeah.
He shamelessly plugged Halloween 2 by having it playing at the
cinema. Yeah, I saw that.
I thought it was very. I mean, for me, it's like I kind of like the whole. Obviously, with Scum, you're literally they're on the bus being taken.
No backstory, no nothing.
There's no backstory.
Yeah.
This spends quite a lengthy amount of time giving you the context of where O'Brien comes from, and where Paco comes from, and the gangs that they run with, and obviously the three-way kind of power struggle you've got on the streets of having the black gangs, the Latino gangs, and then you've got the Irish American Mick O'Brien, and that was all done pretty well. All that build-up, I thought I was really kind of into it. And then entering the facility is very effective. They get walked in and they just get spat on and leered at by all the inmates. And I was reading in the IMDb about this scene is that Sean Penn was like, I want you guys to spit on me. Whereas Paco, he's like, can you guys make sure you brush your teeth and use mouthwash?
Really? You literally
into hygiene.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, that seems like quite a reasonable request. I
don't need to go to that much reality, as in don't worry about
spit all over me.
Spit all over me.
I was really impressed. When the film started, I thought, do you know what? I bet you Sean Penn's character either wrongfully gets sent to this prison, or there's some sort of technicality which means that he shouldn't be. Something. I thought it was going to be some bullshit Hollywood, but he totally deserves to be there. He totally belongs there. I thought he'd be in there for something he didn't do, but yeah.
I found this film effective to a certain point, but there was a lot of inconsistencies, a lot of stuff that didn't work for me, and especially when held up to Scum as a comparison.
Yeah.
Some of the dialogue, your ass is grass. I mean, it's pretty banal kind of fighting talk. It felt like a PG-13 version of Scum. I mean, there's direct kind of
literal
scenes.
Yeah, that's
literal scenes, right?
Yeah.
The scene for me that I was just like, this does not work. Is when it's basically Mick O'Brien's rise to power. So where Ray Brinston goes round and he's banging heads off toilet basins, snooker balls in socks. What Mick O'Brien does is he fills up a pillowcase full of full Coke cans, which would carry a fuckload of weight. When he is swinging around that pillow, it looks like it's barely got like goose feathers in there.
Yeah.
It's literally like a shit pillow fight.
Yeah, right.
And it had no realism, no harshness, no brutality.
Yeah.
All the things that whenever Scum had violence, it had those in abundance.
But the other thing that I thought was weird about this film is that one beating and there's a complete shift in the power structure. All of a sudden, this guy's in charge. Ray Winston had like an entourage already. You see Sean Penn walking around with people. I think it's 80 minutes in, which kind of explains, because the only person he's got on his side in the beginning is that his little Jewish roommate.
Radios.
Yeah.
He looks so much younger than him.
Yeah. Really.
I mean, he's like a Jewish Hey Arnold. Also, there's a food fight in there. There's a food fight.
I remember that, yeah.
And also, there's another. I can kind of read these off. There's a scene where they're planning their breakout, and they pour a corrosive substance on the fence so they can both escape.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They both escape, and I mean, in the most Hollywood kind of way ever, all the inmates just go woo woo woo.
Yeah, right.
Instead of getting the fuck through that hole all making a run for it.
I think the idea is that the screws were keeping them on the other side. I mean, they were standing there blocking them from doing it, but like, I think that many guys would
easily
got through.
They were all there.
Yeah.
I think they could have pushed them to the side and run out of there.
Yeah.
It wasn't like they were armed guards. It's just two adults who aren't armed, and about 40 inmates.
Yeah, I suppose that was a little bit odd.
Yeah, I mean, and some of the violence is very kind of has that overemphasised sound, like they're in a TV show, like the Dukes of Hazzard. It's almost like this dump, this kind of bass hit.
Yeah, right.
There was a lot of that in it. I mean, what was effective is when Mick O'Brien is taken to the adult prison, and fuck me, I mean, Christ, I mean, just seeing a prison of that kind of magnitude, it's the Illinois State Facility. I mean, it is. I mean, that is a real hell on earth.
Yeah, I wouldn't like to go there. I mean, that's a good moment. But I mean, would the script really have just taken a stride to Sean Penn and said, "Hey, come and see. This is what will happen if you go."
It's so. That's what I'm saying. It's an over Hollywood saccharine version of Scum. I mean, it's loads of stuff that wouldn't happen. I think you've really got potential.
Yeah.
But why would you think he's got potential?
Yeah.
What potential does he show? His rap sheet, he's got a hugely long... He's not like a guy that's had, he's got manslaughter charge and he's showing aptitude and intelligence. This guy's got a rap sheet as long as your fucking arm.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it kind of...
But you've got movie star good looks. He's got one of those faces, Sean Penn.
To be honest, he looked like a guy that would get the shit beaten out of him.
Without a doubt.
He didn't...
He doesn't... Ray Winston does look like a guy that could take over a ball store.
Yeah.
Sean Penn looks like a guy that's going to go and marry Madonna.
Yeah, exactly right. I think that's one thing that the film did get quite wrong.
He's a pretty boy.
He's very... Is he?
Well, to some people. I mean, he's got that kind of flowing long hair, and he's not built particularly.
No, I mean, apparently there was some kind of he got intimidated by the guy. What was his name? Paco is his name. His equivalent, the guy who's
Paco.
Yeah. Apparently he got intimidated by the amount of sort of working out that the actor was doing, so he started trying to work out and buff up a little bit. But it didn't really work because he does. Whenever you see him, you just think he looks like he'd be pretty low down the pecking order, regardless of whether he'd beat a load of people.
Yeah, and I don't believe for 2 seconds that someone like Clancy Brown and Tweety, who, I mean, Clancy Brown is always a great screen presence. Yeah. I mean, he's very tall, and Tweety has got fucking guns on top of guns. Yeah. I mean, surely, okay, he got us with a pillow one day. We'll make sure we'll get him in the showers. The two of us.
Exactly. That's why it's with that. The fact that the power structure shifts that immediately. In Scum, it makes sense because it's completely. It's like he's already got a period
of time, and he got a beating first.
Yeah.
Didn't do anything about it, and then he took them out. Yeah. Systematically.
But he
took them out.
He already had people on his side, and Sean Penn only has his roommate on his side. So I just like the whole prison would immediately sort of bow down and start.
Yeah. I mean, there's another scene with Horowitz, which is pure kind of. It's just pure filmic, and it is not rooted in reality at all. It's just done for dramatic heft. Is when he fixes the radio, right? And then Clancy Brown is really over-egging it, dancing around, and then it happens to blow up in his ear.
Yeah.
I mean, who does that with a radio? Like, they just turn it on and they walk around their cell.
Everyone did that in the 80s. They had it on their shoulders, didn't they?
They're in breaking.
No, I don't know. You always saw people
in a prison,
yeah,
it just seemed a bit forced. It was the fact they had to explode in his face, and he had to go and be maimed.
Yeah, it's very Hollywood. The thing that I thought was a little bit awkward about this film was that it tried to be not profound, but it was kind of saccharine. Like whenever Sean Penn read like a note from his girlfriend, the piano music, and I thought, okay, he misses his girlfriend. I appreciate the fact that the film's not trying to sugarcoat how completely unrepentant he is. But I was just like, what about the kid you killed? What about the fact that your best friend, who didn't really want anything to do with the robbery you were going to do, is dead as well? I mean, I just kind of think you can't really do both of those things at once. You can't say, feel sorry for this guy, when he's just completely unrepentant. They should have just cut that shit out, I reckon.
Yeah. And the saddest thing in this is, like, a very small child died. You don't really get the resonance of what happens to Paco's family or Paco's mother.
But Sean Penn doesn't give a fuck either way.
No, there's no repentance. No. It's more about... It's a lot of kind of chest-puffing out faux macho talk.
Yeah.
You know?
It really is the Hollywood version of Scum. It has...
We're losing all of the nuances, all of the psychological stuff, all of the harsh brutality. That it just exchanges that for elongated saccharine.
I mean, it is very entertaining. I'll give it that. I mean, the fact that Sean Penn's character is supposed to redeem himself at the end but he doesn't kill
because he doesn't shove the screwdriver in his
because he doesn't want to stay in prison that much longer. This is not a profound message movie in the slightest, especially when you compare it to Scum, which packs a real punch. This doesn't really.
It ends in a whimper as opposed to Scum, which just ends in literally your jaw being kind of.
But it's completely meaningless as well. Sean Penn didn't want to kill a guy. He didn't get to that point because
the screw's there going. I knew you wouldn't kill him.
I think the acting throughout is spot on. The screws are really, really good. Most of the kids that are in that boss are really good.
The acting's good, and apparently they used a lot of inmates from a correctional facility.
Did they really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. As extras and extra screws and extra inmates. Yeah, this is Scum Light.
Yeah.
Through and through.
It's very formulaic, and it has no message. That's the one thing that I thought was a bit weird. It has no message whatsoever. It just wants to be a piece of Hollywood entertainment, and on that level, it's fine. I think it's well acted. I think it's well shot. I think it's a good piece of entertainment.
It's a competent piece of filmmaking, but there's no gravitas here.
No, it means nothing. I thought it was interesting that the power structure, that's orchestrated in Scum benefits the screws financially, and when they have to call on Carlin and say, "Look, if things turn bad, we need you to maintain order." In Bad Boys, it's kind of just because the screws are fucking lazy and out of touch, and they don't really know what's going on. They don't benefit from it at all.
You've got the one good screw trying to do something, whereas all of obviously the Scum's screws are just unrelenting cunts.
Yeah, but there's no reason for them to be as completely ignorant of what's going on. Like the fact that they basically sort of employ whoever's the top guy. Clancy Brown and his mate at the beginning, getting everyone in line and doing half of the work for them. That's the only way they benefit from it. It seems weird that it's this kind of lawless for no reason. It's a Hollywood movie, and I think it's enjoyable at that level. But when you're comparing it to Scum, it
pales in comparison.
It's just flippant. It's completely flippant. But I did enjoy it. I thought it was well acted, and compelling.
Okay. Well, look. We need to go one way or the other. Who's slopping out the buckets on T-Wing? Who's shining the balls at the dead?
Bad Boys is a much better film than I thought it was going to be. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think it's well acted, and as I said, Scum is a classic. So I would. I mean, Scum is a bona fide cult classic. Fantastically acted. Hugely powerful, unrelenting. Bad Boys is passable fare. It's entertaining. It's well put together. It's well made, but it's light. It's Scum light. So Scum all day long. Scum all day long. But I wouldn't. If you see Bad Boys on TV, have a watch. It's definitely worth a punt. Sean Penn is great in it. There's some good acting on display, and it rattles along nicely. I mean, there's we didn't really go into detail, but I mean, the action sequence that ends with Paco's little brother being killed is a really well put together action sequence. Yeah, I think that was stood out. I think a lot of the action is really poorly choreographed throughout the film, apart from that end bit. But I quite liked it, and I was surprised that I did. Thank you all very much for listening. As always, get your goddamn selves to Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Share stuff, like stuff. Apples and pears. Apple iTunes reviews really fucking help. They really do. Get on there. Give us some props if you dig what we're saying. If you disagree with what we're saying, shout out, contact us. But thank you very much for tuning in. Take it easy. God bless.